What's up, you guys? I'm here with a new video today. We're here to start the first episode in my new series called Why This Deck Failed. And as the title says, we're going to talk about decks that had a lot of hype or were just introduced into the game and people thought they would do something, and unfortunately they just did not live up to that hype. They ultimately failed, hence the title, and they basically were kind of like either a one-hit wonder deck or they were a deck that just didn't see enough competitive play, and they get remembered over the years, but they definitely weren't remembered for being anything successful. They're just being remembered for either being in the anime or other reasons. But you guys know that, as I said, this series is completely going to be built by you, the subscribers. I am going to ask you guys which decks you want to see. I am not going to pick any myself. I am going to do the research and I'm going to gather the appropriate cards, and I'm going to do my best to give you guys my personal reasons as a player over the years. It's been playing since the beginning as to why I feel the deck failed and why I feel that it just didn't compete at the time, and what could be done to maybe, give the deck another chance. You guys all agreed on Crystal Beast. You all said you wanted to know why Crystal Beast failed. It's kind of crazy how long ago this deck came out. It's been a while, you guys. Just bear with me. This is a deck that I did play against. I played against it actually a decent amount. I had a friend that was very into the deck, and he, did all he could to build it. And I'll be honest, even when I played against it, I wasn't really that impressed by it, but we'll get into it, and I'll talk to you guys in this first episode as to why I feel Crystal Beast failed as a deck. So first things first, no bash to any Crystal Beast players. Everyone is free to play whatever they want. I personally never played this deck myself, but I know that the deck was not that great. However, I feel that if it had been piloted properly, probably built properly, and if different decks were out at the time, I think the deck maybe would have had potential. So let's get into it. So Crystal Beast. So Crystal Beast were released, believe it or not, you guys, back in 2007. Now I know all the cards here. If you type in Crystal Beast, I'll literally show you guys. If you literally type in Crystal Beast for a search engine, you get 29 different cards. I included 27 of them because 2 of them have to do mostly with Rainbow Dragon. And Rainbow Dragon, I mean, yeah, it's good, but it's not really like your sole focus of the deck. But I basically included them all here. Now, granted, I'm not going to go over every single one of these cards. I'm going to highlight some of them. You guys feel free, I'll scroll through them throughout the video, and you guys can just go here and see which every card is if you guys want to build the deck, or simply do what I did and just type in Crystal Beast, and this is what will come up in the search database. I figured this way you guys can see every card available, and you can see what cards were good, what cards were bad, and changes you can make to make the deck better. So again, this deck actually premiered in Force of the Breaker. It came out in 2007, and everyone was wondering, there was a lot of hype behind this deck. It actually premiered on Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. It was the main deck used by, I believe his name was Jesse Anderson. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I believe that was the name of the deck, the name of the player. I really don't remember. I think that, it being an anime deck was one of the first things that probably attracted a lot of people. They're probably like, oh man, okay, it's going to be a show deck. I think it's going to be able to do something, and fortunately it didn't. But one of the main reasons why I feel the deck failed, before we get into what the deck does, is that during that time, the decks that were around, for those of you that are wondering, I actually posted in Zodiac, and you guys gave me answers. I want to give a shout out to David Twan Boy. Thank you. He has been playing the game probably as long as I have, if not longer, and he had knowledge of what decks were being played during that time. So remember, back in 2007, we're talking 11 years ago, the decks that were being played were Demise OTK, Monarchs, Perfect Circle, Big City, and DDT, aka Diamond Dude Turbo. So you take that into account, and then you have Crystal Beast. Now, Crystal Beast. So Crystal Beasts are interesting. Their playstyle is very different from most Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks. So basically what they do is, you have the 7 gems. You guys already know about the gems, the birthstones, etc. And they are cards that basically, instead of being destroyed, they go to the back row. And the main 7 that were released, their main one was Sapphire Pegasus. So what this card does is whenever it was summoned, you could place a Crystal Beast monster from your hand deck or graveyard face up in your spell, and Trap Zone as a continuous spell. If this card was destroyed, they all had this lasting effect. If this card was destroyed in a monster zone, you place it face up in your spell, and Trap Zone continues instead of sending it to the graveyard. So that was the thing, is you didn't really have a graveyard full of monsters. They all kind of went to the back row, and they all kind of did something. So this was your main guy. Upon summon, he would put one of these guys face up. You had your Mammoth that, whenever a face-up Crystal Beast monster was targeted for an attack, you make the attack target instead. It had 1600 defense, 1700 attack. So basically, you had this basically intercept the attack, and then you put it in the back row. Same thing. Then you had Topaz Tiger. So what this card does is if this card attacks an opponent's monster, it gains 400 during the damage step, so it goes to 2,000, which seems pretty good because back in the day, you have to remember back in 2007, a 2,000 attack beat stick for level 4 was pretty good. And same thing, if it was, were to be destroyed, it would go to the back row. This card wasn't out yet. This card was out though, the Cobalt Eagle. So basically, you could target a Crystal Beast card you control, return that target to the top of the deck. So basically, same thing. You were able to do stuff like that. I don't really think that was that great, but, it was there. And then this card wasn't out yet. You had the Amethyst Cap. Basically what this does is this card can attack your opponent directly, but when he uses the effect, the damage it inflicts is halved. But this card was basically another way to get damage in. So you were dealing 600. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but remember 2007, you guys. Remember 11 years ago, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was different. You had the Tortoise, the big Tortoise that had 2,000 defense. This card read that if you could target one monster you control that attacked this turn, you could change the target to defense position. So basically, it was a way to, protect your guys, or you could basically attack with this and then put it in defense, and the opponent would have a hard time getting around it. And again, same effect, it would bounce to the back row. And then the last one was Carbuncle. So Carbuncle effect was you can special summon as many Crystal Beast monsters as possible from your spell and trap zones when it's special summoned. So this effect was actually really good. So if you loaded up your Crystal Beast in the back row, you could basically just special summon this card, and then you could use the effect, and bring them all out. And that was kind of a way you could kind of OTK your opponent. Other cards that were really focused on for the deck was, of course, their field spell, Ancient City, and this had, multiple effects. I'll let you guys read it. This card is really a mouthful. I mean, if you look at how many effects this has, but its simple effect was you had to have this many Crystal Beast cards in your spell and trap zone to activate and resolve these effects. So you needed just one card so that this card cannot be destroyed by card effects. That's actually pretty good. That means that if you literally had one Crystal Beast in your back row, they could not hit this card. They would have to hit the Crystal Beast first. So that was pretty crazy. 2+1s, you can have the battle damage you take. 3+1s. During either player's turn, when spell and trap is activated, you could send a Crystal Beast monster you control to the graveyard and negate the activation. If you do destroy it, that effect was pretty good. So you wanted to have at least 3. And 4, you could draw a card. 5, you could target a Crystal Beast monster in your spell and trap zone and special summon that target. So basically, you could special summon Carbuncle, special summon them all, and then it's just like, man, whew, pretty crazy. So that was one of the main support cards. Another one was Rare Value. This was actually their draw card. If you control 2 or more Crystal Beasts in the thing, you choose one in your spell and trap zone, you send it to the graveyard. If you do, you draw 2 cards. So basically, it's kind of like you just send it, you draw 2. It was a good card. And then there were just a plethora of other cards. There was Crystal Release. I don't even know what people played back then, to be honest. I believe the main card that people played, if I'm wrong, correct me again. Like I said, bear with me, you guys. I believe it was Crystal Abundance. You send 4 Crystal Beast monsters from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard to send all cards on the field to the graveyard. Then special summon as many Crystal Beast monsters as possible from your graveyard up to the number of cards your opponent controlled that were sent. So basically, if your opponent had 3 cards, you basically special summon 3 guys after sending 4 Crystal Beasts from your back row to the graveyard. Then you'd summon 3 of them back, and it was another way to kind of OTK the opponent. Crystal Abundance was a card that actually led to what they called the Crystal Abundance FTK, OTK, etc. So that was in there. And then, of course, over the years, they had a lot of other cards. These cards just weren't really that relevant. Again, I'm not going over every single one. You guys can definitely just read them. I went over the monsters because I felt those were the most relevant. Here are the other spells, just for those of you that are wondering. They eventually got a Rhoda, which was pretty cool, but by the time all these cards were fully out, the deck had already just done nothing, and the deck wasn't going to do anything, unfortunately, and that's basically one of the reasons it failed. The deck had already passed its prime, and its playstyle was just not good. Its playstyle was just not aggressive, and the thing was, if you looked at all the other decks were in the format, it just literally could not compete. And even though they really tried, to do what they could, they even tried to focus around Rainbow Dragon. So this card's pretty crazy. The way you would summon it is by having 7 Crystal Beasts with different names on the field or in your graveyards. Basically, if you had them in the graveyard or field, you could summon it. You can send all face-up ones you control. This card would gain 1,000 for each monster sent to the graveyard. So basically, you can make it huge. You can banish all Crystal Beast monsters from your graveyard, shuffle all cards in the field into the deck. That effect is awesome. The fact that you could just clear the board, and especially back in 07, that was pretty nuts. But again, just way too hard a summoning condition. If the game got to that point, I honestly believe you should have just won already. And I feel that that's, the thing that kind of sucks. And then if you look at like what the weaknesses were to this deck, well, if you're filling all your back row up with Crystal Beast monsters, where's your other back row going to go? Like, that's the thing, is if you didn't leave vacant zones, like say you played more spells and traps in your deck, if you filled those spots, where your Crystal Beast going to go, vice versa. And then if you didn't do anything like, to where you left zones open for other cards, I mean, you just couldn't play like other spells and traps, and then your deck would just be basically all Crystal Beasts. And let's face it, a deck that's based all on an archetype with no really good staple support cards isn't going to do well at all. Other cards that hurt this back in the day were Macrocosmos and Dimensional Fissure, because these monsters, instead of going to the graveyard, they'd just be removed. They wouldn't even go to the back row. They'd just be banished, so they couldn't really do anything. But back to, other reasons why this deck failed. So while this deck is trying to, set up its back row with its monsters, and the best way to say it, they're going against Demise OTK. And you guys know, if there's a deck I love, it's Demise OTK. I'm sure you could hear it in my voice. I love that deck. The deck massacred this deck. It wasn't even close. Demise could just blow up the whole board and not care. You could blow up the whole board, put all their cards in the back row, and you could just be like, all right, I'm going to do it again. Just blow up everything, and then you just attack them and you just win. Like, that's basically how it went. Demise, Megamorph, Metal Armored Bug, Doomdozer. You guys know how that deck went. There was also DDT. Now, for those of you that weren't familiar with DDT, don't worry, there'll be a video on that. It's actually a really old school favorite deck of mine. That was Diamond Dude Turbo. Basically, it revolved around the Destiny Heroes and Diamond Dude, and being able to just resolve a bunch of spell cards for free, just get a lot of advantage. And yeah, that deck was also insane. There was Monarchs, and you guys already know Monarchs was nuts. I believe Ryza was released in Force of the Breaker as well. So Ryza, added more elements to it. Ryza was great against this deck because it would just spin the monster to the top, so you'd have basically a dead draw. It didn't support any of the part of it going to the back row, so they couldn't really do anything. Perfect Circle, you guys already know, with Destiny Hero, what the hell was it? Disc Commander, before it got errata, how crazy it was. Being able to draw 2 cards, Light and Darkness Dragon, etc., etc., etc. You guys already know. Big City was a hero deck that played. It was just like a hero deck that played. It was like Hero Control. It played Ocean and Skyscraper 2. Those of you that remember, this is a long time ago, so remember that. Other things they just couldn't deal with. Again, they couldn't deal with the decks that were going on in this format. They couldn't deal with the way these decks played. They played so much better, and that's the thing. They played so much better than Crystal Beast did, and it's a real shame because I know people love this deck. I know this was an anime deck, and you try your best to make every anime deck at least try to do something. Or those of you that are huge fans of the show or fans of Jesse Anderson, like, you wanted to play the deck. Unfortunately, the deck just didn't do well. Did it do well in casual scenes? I'm sure it did. Did it throw people off? I'm sure it did. The first time I played against it, I had no idea what was going on. I was like, I thought I destroyed your monster. They're like, no, it goes to the background. I'm like, what? Like, that's crazy. So not only that, there was plenty of back row removal. Well, not plenty, but I mean, there was Heavy Storm. There was, I believe, Mystical Space Typhoon was around at 1 or 2 or 3. I don't remember. This was way before Cyclone, Twisters, all those cards, but there was that, Dust Tornado, Breaker, etc. There was all these cards that just, could just deal with the back row. So basically, you destroy the monster, pop the back row. They were just out of options. Now, the crazy thing is that later on they got pendulum monsters, you guys, which I think is pretty crazy, to be honest. Years down the line, they got this first one, Crystal Protector. Its effect in the pendulum scale was each time Crystal Beast you control will be destroyed by battle or card effects. It's not. It had another effect. If it was summoned to the field. I think it's just the fact that they got the 2 scales and they both had the same effect. They couldn't they couldn't be targeted. They couldn't really do anything. This one was you contribute this, add 1 Crystal Beast monster or Crystal Beast spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So that was kind of cool. That monster effect was pretty cool. But again, it was too little, too late. This support for the deck just didn't do anything, and I feel that that's the biggest downfall to this deck, was that by the time they tried to add new support, tried to make the deck more modern, it was too late. 2007 was eons ago, you guys, eons ago, and the fact that they wanted to add support to it after a new summoning mechanic had come out shows that, okay, give them kudos for trying to give the deck a little more of a leg to stand on. But the time had passed. If the deck couldn't play when it first came out, if the deck couldn't play with all these cards it had at its disposal back in 2007, damn well by the time, I believe it was 2015 or whenever 15, 16, one of those years, when these Pendulum cards came out, it's not going to be able to play now, especially with the way the formats were. But overall, kudos to anyone that still tries to play Crystal Beasts for fun, tries to play them online, tries to understand them, tries to make them work. Shout out to anyone that, you know, supports this deck and continues to play it or holds on to it for sentimental and collector's value. I think that it's a real shame that a deck like this did unfortunately fail. It did not do what it was set out to do. It did, you know, inspire a lot of players to play it, but I feel that it just didn't live up to competitive hype, and it didn't live up to its ability to win a championship or anything like that. And I mean, it's a shame because, you know, it's cool that a mechanic like this exists, but unfortunately it was just not the right time for a deck like this, and I feel that there will not be a time for a deck like this. I feel that its playstyle is just really outdated, really different, and I feel that it's just inferior to what we have here in the game now. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm sorry if there's any Crystal Beast players out there that don't like this video. Trust me, I'm not ragging on your deck at all. I'm just stating the facts from a competitive player's you know, aspect, and from just the way this deck, you know, came into the game, has been around in the game for 11 plus years, and unfortunately it just hasn't done anything. Could something change in the future? Yes, and that's the thing with all these decks. Could they potentially do something in the future? Yes, and the way that would happen is if new support comes out, and if it makes the deck insane, if it makes the deck get a new breath of life. Like, you guys know when Card of Demise came out, it brought Cleafort back, it brought a lot of strategies back. This could be the same thing, just time will tell. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please show your support by leaving a like. I really would like to continue this series. Remember, this is 100% selected by you guys. Every week I'll probably post in the community tab of what deck you guys would like to see next. We'll post a comment here, probably pinned to the top, and you guys can just tell me which deck you'd like to see, and, you know, I will do my best to bring it to you. I hope I did the deck justice. I hope I explained as much as I could. Again, if I missed anything, please share it in the comments below, and let me know why you personally feel that Crystal Beast failed as a deck. Let me know what you guys think of the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.